Have you ever sat quietly, long after the house had gone still, and felt the weight of your own story settle in the room like dust in a beam of golden morning light? Maybe you were cradling a cup of tea, hands warm but heart a little tired, thinking of all the turns your life had taken, not regretting, not quite, just wondering how much of what we carry is truly ours, and how much was simply handed down like an old coat from someone else's closet. There's a quiet moment in each of our lives where the noise outside softens just enough for us to hear a deeper voice within. It doesn't shout, it doesn't command, it whispers, and in that whisper, if we lean in close enough, we may begin to hear a question that echoes through all the years. Who am I really, beneath all these layers? Not the titles, not the roles, not the mistakes, not even the triumphs, just me. That question isn't meant to be solved like a riddle, it's meant to be lived, walked with, sat beside, like an old friend who doesn't need to talk much to make you feel understood. I remember a story a monk once told me, back when I was visiting a temple hidden among the low fog of the mountains in northern China. The kind of place where the wind sounds like an old song and the silence has a heartbeat. The monk, a wiry man with eyes that looked like they'd seen 1,000 autumns, pointed to a crooked tree that had grown sideways before finding the sun. "You see that tree?" he asked. "It never wanted to be a symbol, it just wanted light. But the path it took, now that's what people remember." And then he smiled, like he'd just handed me a lantern for a dark road I didn't know I was walking. And perhaps that's where we begin this journey, you and I, with the truth that we too bend and stretch and twist ourselves in search of light. Sometimes it's the light of love, or peace, or safety. Sometimes it's the light of being enough. But somewhere along the way, without realizing it, many of us begin to mistake the direction for the destination. We chase roles, identities, validations, thinking that if we just get it all right, we'll finally feel okay. But the truth, often we don't even know what we're chasing, we just know we're tired of running. There was a man I met, let's call him Arthur, in his late 60s, retired early, financially secure, 2 grown children who loved him, and a house that looked like it belonged in a catalogue. And yet one afternoon he told me, "I feel like I've climbed the wrong mountain. The view's nice, sure, but it's not mine." It was said half in jest, but the weight behind it lingered like incense smoke, and I think you might understand what he meant. Sometimes we build a life that looks right from the outside, but feels off on the inside. Not because we did something wrong, but because somewhere we stopped listening to the part of us that doesn't speak in checklists or calendars. So what is this self that we're always trying to improve, protect, or escape? Buddhism suggests something quietly radical, that we are not the body and we are not the mind. At first that sounds strange, doesn't it? We spend our entire lives hearing, trust your gut, follow your heart, change your mindset. But what if the very things we think are us are just the clothes we've worn for this journey? Let's sit with that. If you were truly your body, could you choose to stop it from aging? If you were truly your mind, could you command it to silence its worries on demand? No. The body aches, the mind wanders. They're yours, yes, but they're not you. So what is the you watching all of this unfold? The Buddha once said, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. Not a religious life necessarily, but one rooted in seeing, really seeing what's within us, not just what we've collected, but what we've become, and what we could still be. There's a story told in Zen tradition about a man rowing a small boat across a foggy lake. Suddenly, another boat bumps into his. Angry, he begins to shout, only to realize the other boat is empty, drifting with the current. The moment he sees it's empty, his anger dissolves. The lesson: when we think someone else is to blame, we react, but when we realize it's all just the river, the fog, the drift, we begin to let go. So I wonder, how many of the boats that bump into us each day, an impatient driver, a harsh word, an unexpected loss, are actually empty? How much suffering do we carry simply because we believe it's personal? And that perhaps is the beginning of self-mastery. Not a grand dramatic change, but the slow turning of the head, the softening of the breath, the whispered decision to stop taking the river so personally. Because the truth is, you are not the current, you are the one who watches, the one who rows. And as we gently row forward into the next part of this journey together, let's ask ourselves not how to fix who we are, but how to see clearly enough to remember what we've always been. There's something quietly humbling about recognizing that you're not in control of everything that moves inside you. Thoughts come and go like stray cats. You don't invite them, but they find their way in. Emotions rise without warning, sometimes gentle as waves, other times as sudden and sharp as broken glass underfoot. You may wake up feeling hopeful, only to find sorrow waiting at the kitchen table. And the most puzzling part, you don't know why. It just is. But what if I told you that awareness, not control, is the first true step toward peace? There's a parable the old monks would tell about a young novice who came to the master full of energy and ambition. "Master," he said, "I want to master my mind." The teacher nodded and said nothing, just handed him a bowl of water and told him to carry it across the courtyard without spilling a single drop. Simple, the boy thought. He walked slowly, carefully, concentrating with all his might. When he returned, not a drop was lost. He looked up, triumphant. "I did it," he said. "I mastered the bowl." The master smiled. "No," he replied gently. "You mastered your attention. Your mind will take longer." That story has stayed with me, because isn't that what we're really trying to do every time we meditate, or journal, or simply pause in the middle of a hectic day to breathe? We're practicing the art of attention. We're learning, bit by bit, to bring our gaze inward, not to fix, but to see. And in that seeing, something softens, something opens. You don't need to predict every thought that will rise in you. That's like trying to guess the shape of every cloud that passes. But you can slowly become the kind of person who doesn't chase the cloud or fear the storm. You become the sky instead, the witness, the space in which thoughts appear and vanish like breath on a mirror. I remember speaking with an elderly woman named Margaret at a retreat once. She was in her 70s, silver hair in a braid down her back, and eyes that seemed to smile before her lips ever did. She told me how most of her life had been spent trying to get her act together. She'd followed all the rules, raised her children, worked hard, gave to others, but always felt like there was something unnameable she hadn't quite figured out. And now, she laughed, warm and weathered. "Now I just sit and watch," she said. "The thoughts, the memories, the doubts, like geese across the sky. I wave at them, I don't chase anymore." There's a kind of mastery in that, a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from effort, but from surrender. And surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving in, letting go of the illusion that peace will arrive once everything outside of you is fixed. Because peace was never out there. It was always inside, waiting beneath the noise. So the question becomes, what are you feeding your mind day after day? Just as we choose our meals carefully, organic, low sugar, heart healthy, are we as mindful with what we consume mentally? The news, the fears, the gossip, the inner criticism that whispers you're not doing enough, not being enough. Would you feed your best friend the thoughts you feed yourself? The Buddha taught that what we dwell on, we become. It's simple, almost too simple. But that's where the truth often hides, in the plain sight of the everyday. The thoughts we rehearse shape the emotions we feel, and over time, those emotions become our moods, our patterns, our identity. You may not be able to stop a negative thought from arising, but you can choose whether to sit down and serve it tea, So how do we shift the diet of the mind? Not by force, not by scolding ourselves, but by gently, repeatedly returning to what nourishes us: gratitude, presence, compassion, breath. It begins with a choice as small as how you start your morning. Before the emails, before the to-do list, can you place your hand on your chest and simply ask, "How are you really?" Can you listen without rushing to fix? In time, you may notice the quiet power of that pause. You may begin to sense a steadiness beneath the swirl, like a still pond beneath the falling leaves. And from that steadiness, a new kind of action arises, not reactive, not driven by fear or habit, but deliberate, kind, clear. There's a saying from the Zen tradition: you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should sit for an hour. It's funny, but it's true. The busier our minds, the more we need stillness. Not as a luxury, but as a lifeline, because it is in the silence that we remember what matters and what doesn't. And so we continue this journey, not to silence every thought or control every emotion, but to sit with them as we would with old friends who sometimes talk too much. To understand that the mind, like the weather, has its seasons, but you are the earth beneath, solid, patient, unmoved. Let us carry this awareness forward now into the next chapter of our journey, where we begin to explore the patterns, both seen and unseen, that shape the way we walk through this life. Patterns inherited, patterns repeated, and the tender question, can they be changed? Patterns. They run through our lives like old footpaths in a forest, some well-worn and familiar, others hidden beneath layers of time and habit. We don't always see them clearly. Often we simply follow where they lead, not realizing we've walked the same trail 100 times, circling the same fears, desires, and reactions, convinced each time that this one will be different. And yet, somewhere deep down, haven't you ever wondered, why do I keep ending up here? Let me tell you a story, a simple one, but it stays with me. There was a man, a farmer, who every day walked the same road from his house to his field. One morning, he tripped over a root that had begun to rise through the path. He cursed, brushed himself off, and continued. The next day, it happened again, and the next. Weeks passed, months even, and each time he stumbled, he grew angrier. Finally, he went to the village elder and demanded, "Why does this root keep making me fall?" The elder looked at him, kindly but firmly, and said, "It's not the root that keeps tripping you, it's the part of you that refuses to step aside." I remember hearing that story for the first time and feeling something in me shift. How many times had I blamed the root, blamed life, others, circumstances, when all the while the same pattern was playing out beneath the surface? We all have roots like that. Some inherited from childhood, from culture, from pain. Some carved by our own hands, and yet we don't often pause to ask, is this still serving me? In Buddhist thought, there is the concept of samskara, mental imprints or conditioning formed through experience. They're like grooves etched into a record. Play the record enough times, and the music becomes familiar, expected. But what if the tune is filled with sorrow, or anxiety, or self-doubt? What if we're humming along to a melody that no longer fits the person we're becoming? There's a woman I once knew named Helen. She was in her early 70s, always dressed with grace, her hands soft and her voice steady. She had spent most of her life being the strong one, the caretaker, the one who never cried in public, who held everyone else together. But when her husband passed and the silence of her home grew louder, she realized something. She didn't know how to be held, not by others, not even by herself. All her strength, all her pride, it had become a shell, a pattern of coping that no longer brought her peace. And so for the first time, she let herself grieve, really grieve. "I thought I'd fall apart," she told me one day, tears gently streaking her cheeks. But instead, I fell into myself, and there was more space in me than I realized. That's the thing about patterns. They're not just behaviors, they're beliefs. Quiet, stubborn beliefs about who we are, what we deserve, how life is supposed to be. And sometimes they are so deeply woven into us that we mistake them for truth. But what if they're just habits of the heart, learned and repeated? What if the door has been unlocked this whole time, and all that's left is for us to turn the handle? Of course, it's not easy. Change never is. Our patterns are comfortable, even when they're painful. They give us a sense of identity, of predictability. Letting them go feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, with nothing but mist below. But the Buddha reminds us, you can only lose what you cling to. And oh, how tightly we cling to resentment, to judgment, to the need to be right, to the stories we tell about ourselves. But here's the invitation, not to force change, but to observe. Just observe. When do you feel small? When do you react instead of respond? When do you tighten, withdraw, lash out, or shut down? Not with shame, not with self-blame, but with the same curiosity you might offer a child who doesn't yet know better. Because awareness is a gentle flame, it illuminates without burning, and the more you shine it on your patterns, the more they soften, the more they lose their grip. There's a meditation practice I sometimes guide people through called the movie of me. You simply imagine yourself as a character on screen, living, moving, speaking, and you, the observer, sit quietly in the audience, watching. You see your reactions, your habits, your fears, but you also see your tenderness, your courage, the way your eyes light up when you talk about something you love. You see it all without judgment, and in that seeing, a quiet miracle begins. You stop being your pattern. You start being the one who sees the pattern, and that's where transformation begins, not with the noise of self-improvement, but with the silence of self-awareness. With that space between thought and action where choice is born. So I ask you gently now, what is the pattern in your life that keeps repeating? And what would happen if, just once, you chose differently? As we move forward in this journey, we'll begin to look deeper, not only at how these patterns shape our behavior, but how they're often tied to the stories we carry. Stories of who we think we are, stories that have never been questioned. And perhaps if we look closely enough, we'll find the courage to rewrite them. Stories. We live by them, don't we? Sometimes without even realizing it. They weave themselves into our thoughts like old lullabies, gently sung over and over again until they become the background music of our lives. You know the ones, I'm not the kind of person who, or people like me, never, or even, this is just the way life is. They sound harmless, familiar, but they shape the way we see the world, and more importantly, the way we see ourselves. I remember a man I met years ago during a silent retreat. His name was Jonah. Mid-60s, ex-Marine, strong jaw, steady hands. He had come not because he believed in meditation, he told me, but because his granddaughter had begged him to try something new. On the second day after a long sitting, he came up to me and said in a voice that sounded both surprised and embarrassed, I just realized I've been living my whole life like I'm still at war. He wasn't talking about combat. He was talking about the way he held himself, rigid, defensive, always expecting the next hit. Even in my own home, he whispered, I don't let my guard down. Not really. And just like that, one thread in his story began to unravel. Because sometimes awareness arrives not like a thunderclap, but like a quiet recognition, oh, I've been carrying this for far too long. In Buddhist practice, there's a word vijnana. It means discernment, clear seeing. It's the ability to distinguish between what's real and what's simply the echo of old conditioning. And oh, how many echoes we live in. A harsh word from a parent decades ago becomes the voice we now hear when we make a mistake. A moment of rejection in childhood becomes a lifelong fear of showing up fully. The story was true once, maybe, but is it still true now? That's the heart of it. We rarely stop to ask, is this story I'm telling myself still serving me? Or is it simply familiar? There's an old teaching about a monk who carried a heavy bundle on his back as he traveled from village to village. One day, another monk asked him why he didn't set it down. "Because it's mine," he replied. "I've carried it for so long, I wouldn't know who I was without it." But one evening, as he grew tired and the road stretched ahead like a ribbon with no end, he finally placed the bundle on the ground and sat beside it. For the first time, he listened to the silence that had always been waiting underneath the weight. And you know what? The world didn't end. The path didn't vanish. He simply stood up lighter and walked on. We all have bundles like that. They take many forms: identities we cling to, expectations we never questioned, guilt we never released. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself is to set one down, even if just for a while, even if just to see how it feels. I once worked with a woman named Sarah who had always seen herself as the fixer, the glue in her family, the one everyone leaned on, and she wore that title with pride, even as it drained her spirit. When her sister fell ill, Sarah stepped in without hesitation. But one night, after a long and exhausting day, she admitted in tears, "I'm so tired of being strong, but I don't know who I'd be if I wasn't." That's the bind, isn't it? When your role becomes your identity, stepping out of it can feel like stepping into nothingness. But emptiness, as the Buddha taught, is not a lack, it's a space of potential. It's where the seed begins before the sprout, where the silence lives before the song. The moment you allow yourself to not know who you are for a little while, you begin to remember something deeper, something untouched by the stories you've inherited or built. And that remembering doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds slowly, like the way morning light touches the edges of a room. Sometimes it begins with a question: what if I am more than the roles I've played? What if I am not my mistakes, not my titles, not my pain? What if underneath it all, I am simply awareness, presence, stillness itself? One of the great gifts of Buddhist wisdom is its invitation to return, not to a better version of ourselves, but to a truer one. The Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki once said, "You are perfect just as you are, and you could use a little improvement." It sounds like a contradiction, but it's actually freedom. You don't have to become someone else to be whole. You only need to remove what's not really you to see what's been there all along. And so I ask you gently, what stories have you been telling yourself on repeat? Who taught you those stories? Are they still true? And even if they once were, do you want them to define the rest of your life? There is great courage in rewriting your own narrative, not erasing the past, no, but choosing a different voice for the chapters ahead. As we continue forward, we'll begin to explore what it means to live not from old stories or reactions, but from something deeper, a quiet center within that remains steady even when life is not. And we'll ask ourselves the next question: if I am not my past, not my thoughts, not even my roles, then what is left? And could that perhaps be where peace begins? There's a moment, often unexpected, when silence no longer feels empty, when you sit quietly, not out of exhaustion, but out of choice, and something in you shifts. The noise of the world softens, the usual mental chatter fades just enough, and you begin to feel it, a presence beneath the thinking, beneath the doing. It's not grand or dramatic, it doesn't announce itself, but it's unmistakably there, a kind of stillness that watches, that holds, that is, and perhaps that's the mystery we circle around without realizing, the sense that behind everything we do and feel, there is something more stable, more essential. Not the personality, not the ever-changing moods, but the part of you that simply observes it all, the part that never left. I remember once sitting under a fig tree with a young man who had come to a retreat after what he called a spiritual burnout. He'd read all the books, tried all the techniques, meditated for hours, journaled until his fingers ached, and yet he still felt lost. "I'm doing everything right," he told me, frustration thick in his voice, "but I still don't feel peaceful." I asked him a simple question: who is the one trying so hard to feel peaceful? He blinked, opened his mouth, then closed it again, and after a long pause he said quietly, "I don't know." That "I don't know" was not defeat. It was the beginning of honesty, because as long as we're clinging to an identity, even one labeled spiritual seeker, we're still caught in the web, still chasing, still grasping. And the essence of the practice is not to add more, it's to let go, to stop identifying with the movement of the mind and begin resting in the awareness that sees it all come and go. In the Buddhist teachings, there's a phrase that points to this inner essence, Tathagata Gapa, often translated as Buddha nature. But don't let the term confuse you. It doesn't mean you have to be a monk or wear robes or live in a temple to access it. Quite the opposite. It means that beneath all your thoughts, stories, fears and roles, there is already something awake in you, something wise, something deeply at peace. The work is not to find it, the work is to uncover it, to stop piling more on top of it. And yes, I know that sounds abstract, maybe even frustrating. We want a step-by-step plan, a tool, a fix. But the journey inward is more like remembering how to breathe than learning to build a house. It's about removing what blocks the light, not creating the light. Think of it like this. Have you ever seen a pond after the rain has stirred up the mud? At first the water is murky, clouded. You can't see the bottom. But if you leave it undisturbed, the mud begins to settle. Slowly, gently, the water clears, and then you realize the clarity was always there, just hidden. The same is true of your mind. You don't have to force it to become still. You only need to stop stirring. This is why meditation isn't a performance. It's not about sitting in lotus position with a perfectly serene expression. Sometimes it's just about noticing when your thoughts are spinning and choosing just once not to follow, and then again and again, until one day, without warning, you realize you're not inside the storm anymore, you're watching it from the shore. There's a story in the Zen tradition about a student who asked the master, "How can I become enlightened?" The master replied, "Have you finished your rice?" "Yes," said the student. "Then wash your bowl," the master said. That's it. No riddle, no thunderbolt of revelation, just the reminder that peace is not in the extraordinary. It's in the ordinary, when fully lived. Washing the bowl, tying your shoes, breathing, being. But here's the quiet paradox. You cannot force yourself to be peaceful. The more you try, the more tension you create. It's like trying to fall asleep by telling yourself to fall asleep. You only drift off when you stop trying, and so it is with presence, with being. So the next time you find yourself caught in a loop, worrying, planning, remembering, regretting, pause, take a slow breath, and ask, who is noticing this? That simple question pulls you back, like a hand resting gently on your shoulder. Not to fix, not to scold, just to remind you, you are not your thoughts, you are the space in which they arise, and that space is sacred. As we continue along this path together, we'll begin to explore how this stillness, once touched, changes the way we move through the world, how it transforms not just the quiet moments, but the chaotic ones. Because true peace isn't about escaping life's storms, it's about learning how to walk through them with steadiness in your step and spaciousness in your heart. It's one thing to find stillness when the world is quiet, when you're alone on a park bench, or lying under a canopy of stars, or sipping tea in the early morning hush before the city wakes. But what happens when the noise returns? When the phone rings, the bills pile up, the body aches, or someone you love says something that cuts deeper than you expected. That's the true test, isn't it? Not whether we can touch peace in perfect conditions, but whether we can carry it with us into the messiness of being human. A monk once said to me, "You think you're peaceful because you live alone on the mountain. Go spend a week in the market, then tell me how calm you are." I laughed at the time, but the truth hit me later. Tranquility that depends on silence is fragile. It's the kind of peace that shatters the moment life raises its voice. But a peace that's cultivated inside, patiently, persistently, that kind of peace has roots, and to grow those roots we must train where we are, in the cities, in our families, in the tangled relationships, the responsibilities, the push and pull of modern life. Because this, my friend, is the monastery now. This is where the work begins. There's a man I once taught, David, a grandfather, former mechanic, hands worn and thick from decades of labor. He'd always believed meditation was for other people, the quiet types, the scholarly. But after his second heart surgery, something in him cracked open. He began to notice the sheer weight of all he'd been carrying, old resentments, guilt, a hardened belief that vulnerability was weakness. He didn't say much during our sessions, but one day, after sitting together in silence, he looked at me and said, "I used to fix engines. Now I'm learning to sit with what can't be fixed." And just like that, he smiled, not with his mouth, but with something deeper. That's the kind of transformation that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't make headlines, but it changes everything. Because once you realize you don't have to react to every feeling, every thought, every tug of the world, you begin to reclaim your energy. You begin to choose how you show up, not out of habit, but out of intention. The Buddha taught, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. What does that mean? It means that life will bring discomfort. That's part of being alive. We lose people we love. Our bodies age. Situations change, but suffering, that's what we add on top. That's the resistance, the this shouldn't be happening, the why me, the tightness that clings when life asks us to loosen our grip. And so much of that clinging comes from how we relate to our inner world. We mistake thoughts for facts, emotions for truth, reactions for reality. But if we could just pause, even for a breath, we might see that these inner storms pass, that what feels overwhelming now may feel different tomorrow, that not every emotion needs a response, some just need space. This is where the practice of mindfulness becomes more than a technique. It becomes a way of relating to life, a way of softening into the moment rather than bracing against it. It doesn't mean you stop feeling, quite the opposite. It means you start feeling fully, without being consumed. There's a teaching in Zen called shikantaza, just sitting. It sounds simple, but it's profoundly challenging. You sit, you breathe, you allow, no fixing, no striving, just being with what is, the itch, the ache, the restlessness, the longing, and in that honest presence, something begins to shift, not quickly, not loudly, but undeniably. It's like this. Imagine you're holding a snow globe and someone's just shaken it. The flakes swirl violently, making it impossible to see clearly. Most of us try to fix the blur, shake harder, spin faster, grab at the flakes. But mindfulness says, put the globe down, let it rest, let the storm inside settle on its own time, and in that stillness clarity returns. I remember once walking through the subway in New York, people rushing, announcements blaring, a tangle of motion and sound. But then I saw a woman standing perfectly still on the platform, eyes closed, hands resting gently on her belly, breathing. Amid all the chaos, she was unmoved, like a candle that refused to flicker. I don't know her story, but in that moment I thought, this is it. This is the practice. Not escaping the world, but staying rooted in the middle of it. And so I ask you now, where in your life do you most lose your balance? What moments tip you into reactivity? What would it mean to bring mindfulness there, not to suppress, but to witness? You don't need a cushion or incense or sacred music. You just need willingness, a breath, a bit of space between the trigger and the reaction. That space is where your freedom lives. As we journey onward, we'll begin to turn our gaze towards something many of us avoid: the past, the regrets, the old wounds, the things we wish we could do over. But we'll approach them not with shame, but with gentleness, because perhaps, just perhaps, healing isn't about forgetting what's behind us, but about learning to carry it with tenderness rather than pain. Regret. It's such a heavy word, isn't it? Not just in sound, but in how it settles into the corners of your chest. Quiet, persistent, like a draft from a window that never quite shuts. And it visits us all, sooner or later. Sometimes in small, sharp pangs, like remembering a conversation you wish you'd handled differently. Other times it arrives like a flood, carrying with it years of choices, missed chances, and roads not taken. There's a particular weight to the regrets that surface later in life. Perhaps you've felt it, that tug when the house is quiet, when the calendar is a little emptier and there's more time to remember, more space for the old stories to resurface. "If only I had" is a phrase that echoes down countless hallways of memory. I once sat with a woman named Ruth who had just turned 78. Her children were grown, her husband had passed some years before, and she spent much of her time tending her small garden and reading on the porch. One afternoon, as we watched the wind play with the edges of a maple tree, she whispered, "I've been a good person, I know that, but I can't help thinking of the people I hurt along the way, the things I didn't say when I should have, or the ones I said too harshly." Her voice cracked, not from drama, but from decades of holding those feelings in a quiet corner of her heart. And I think so many of us can relate. We look back not to punish ourselves, but because we're trying to make sense of the story. We want to know that even the messy parts, the painful chapters, had meaning, that we weren't just stumbling in the dark, hurting others and ourselves without purpose. The Buddha once said, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." The same can be said of regret. It isn't something life hands us as a sentence. It's something we carry, often long after the moment has passed. And the deeper truth, most of us did the best we could with what we knew at the time, with the tools we had, with the fears we hadn't yet named. But still, the past lingers. So the question becomes, what do we do with regret? Do we let it define us, or can it become part of our awakening? There's a powerful story from the early Buddhist texts about a murderer named Angulimala. His name means garland of fingers, a title he earned by killing many, believing it would lead him to spiritual power. But one day he met the Buddha, and instead of anger, he received stillness, compassion, a mirror, not of judgment but of truth. In that moment, something cracked open inside him. He dropped his weapon, he changed his path, and he spent the rest of his life in service and repentance, not to erase his past but to transform it. Now, I'm not comparing anyone here to a murderer, but the essence of the story is this: the past cannot be undone, but it can be transformed. Regret doesn't have to be the end of the story, it can be the turning point. But first there must be forgiveness, and not just forgiveness for others, that's hard enough. But the harder one often is forgiveness for ourselves. The parts of us that were immature, that acted out of fear, ignorance, desperation, the younger self who made choices you wouldn't make now. There's a practice I often recommend. Write a letter to the version of yourself who made the mistake. Not to excuse it, but to understand it. Speak to them as you would a child who stumbled. Offer them kindness, compassion, the kind you so freely offer others, but often withhold from your own heart. Because the truth is, You cannot carry regret and walk freely at the same time. One pulls you back, the other invites you forward, and eventually you have to choose. Now this doesn't mean forgetting. Some wounds leave scars, but even scars soften with time. They don't disappear, but they stop hurting when touched. And that's what healing looks like. Not erasure, but tenderness. I met a man once, Edward, who had spent 20 years estranged from his brother over a misunderstanding they'd both fed with pride. When he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, he reached out. They met quietly in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and second chances. They didn't solve everything, but they looked each other in the eyes, held hands and said the words that had waited decades to be spoken. "I'm sorry. I forgive you. I missed you." That room became for a moment a temple. Not all reconciliations require another person. Sometimes the other has passed or won't respond, or it isn't safe to reconnect. But you can still do the work within. You can still lay the weight down. So let me ask you gently, what are you still carrying, and what would it feel like to forgive the one who made the mistake? Buddhism teaches that liberation comes not from perfection, but from letting go. And perhaps the final letting go is this: not needing the past to have been different in order to love the person you are becoming. As we move forward, we will step into the next terrain of this journey, the tension between doing and being, between striving for a better self and simply resting in the self that already is. We'll ask ourselves what it means to grow without self-judgment, to improve without forgetting to love ourselves along the way. There's a fine thread we walk, often without noticing, a quiet pull between two inner voices, one urging us to grow, improve, do better, the other whispering, "You are enough, just as you are." And at times these voices seem to argue, one driven by ambition, the other by grace, one pushing us forward, the other inviting us to stay. And if you've ever felt torn between striving and self-acceptance, you're not alone. It's one of the most human dilemmas there is. From the outside, they might look like opposites, but what if they aren't? What if the real wisdom lies not in choosing between the two, but in learning how to hold them both? There's a parable I love from the Zen tradition. A student approaches the master, weary and frustrated. "Master," he says, "I meditate every day. I study the scriptures. I serve the Sangha, and still I feel restless, never enough." The master smiles, pours him a cup of tea and replies, "You are like a man rowing a boat with great effort while still tied to the shore." The student furrows his brow. "Then should I stop rowing?" The master shakes his head gently. "No. Untie the rope." The rope, of course, is the belief that we are broken, that we are lacking. That peace and worthiness live somewhere just beyond the next milestone, after we lose the weight, get the title, become more disciplined, less angry, more enlightened. But the more we chase, the further it seems to drift, like trying to catch your own shadow. And yet, growth is beautiful. It's natural. The flower wants to bloom. The child wants to walk. It's not that we shouldn't evolve, but that we must ask ourselves why. Are we growing because we love ourselves, or because we're trying to earn that love? I once met a woman named Elaine, retired, widowed, and beginning a new chapter of her life after decades of putting others first. She'd recently taken up painting, and her eyes lit up when she talked about colors and textures. "I feel alive again," she told me, "but I also feel guilty, like I should be doing something more productive." I asked her, "Why can't joy be productive?" She paused, as if hearing the idea for the first time. So many of us have been taught that self-worth is tied to output, that rest is laziness, that unless we're constantly improving, we're somehow failing. But let me offer a softer truth. You are not a machine. You are a living, breathing, feeling being, and your value is not measured in how many goals you check off, but in the quiet sincerity with which you live your days. The Buddha often spoke of the middle way, a path between indulgence and self-denial, between passivity and obsession. In that same spirit, we can walk the middle path between being and doing. We can set intentions while also honoring where we are. We can reach for more without shaming what is. One of the monks I trained with in my younger days had a phrase he would repeat every morning before practice: "I move forward not to become worthy, but because I already am." There was a freedom in that, the kind of freedom that allows you to stumble without falling apart, to rest without guilt, to strive without self-hate. Think of a tree. It grows taller each year, stretches toward the sun, sinks roots deeper into the earth. But does it strain? Does it hate itself for not blooming sooner? No, it grows because that's what life does, quietly, patiently, without shame. So ask yourself gently, what would change if I pursued growth from a place of love rather than lack? If my self-improvement wasn't about fixing myself, but about honoring the beauty that's already here, just waiting to unfold. You can still want to be more patient, more present, more courageous, but let those be gifts you give yourself, not punishments. Let them rise from a tender knowing, I am already whole, and yet I am still becoming. There's a simple practice I share with students who wrestle with this balance. Before setting any new goal, whether spiritual, emotional, or practical, pause and ask, am I doing this because I love myself or because I don't? The answer might surprise you, and it might just change the way you approach everything. As we begin to near the final parts of this journey together, we'll now turn to the role of discipline and focus, not as rigid rules, but as loving containers. We'll ask what it truly means to commit to a path without becoming imprisoned by it, and how we can develop consistency, not through force but through care, because sometimes the most sacred practice is simply showing up for yourself, again and again, with gentle hands and an open heart. Discipline. It's a word that can make us tense up, isn't it? For many, it brings back memories of stern faces, strict schedules, rules that felt more like cages than guidance. But what if we've misunderstood it all along? What if true discipline isn't about pressure or punishment, but about devotion? Not about forcing ourselves into shape, but about shaping a life that's worth waking up for. I once met a retired school teacher named Walter. He was the kind of man who still polished his shoes every morning, even though he had nowhere in particular to go. It's not about the shoes, he told me with a wink. It's about the ritual. Every day at the same time, he took a quiet walk around the block, watered the flowers outside his porch, and read a passage from a worn copy of the Dhammapada. When I asked him why, he said simply, "Because in the noise of the world I need anchors." That's what discipline really is, not a whip but an anchor. A way to stay steady when the tides of life pull you this way and that. A way to return to yourself again and again, especially on the days when you feel scattered, restless, lost. And yes, it takes effort. Some mornings you won't want to sit in meditation. Some days your mind will race and resist and bargain. But the point isn't to win a fight. The point is to show up anyway, to sit in the chair, to breathe through the discomfort, to light the candle, even if you don't feel spiritual. That act of returning, gently but consistently, that's where the transformation happens. The Buddha likened discipline to the string of a lute, not so tight that it snaps, not so loose that it sags, but just right, tuned to carry the song of your life. Too much rigidity, and we become brittle. Too little structure and we drift. The middle way, again, invites us to find that balance, gentle commitment. There's also a powerful misconception about discipline, that it must always be active, that it's about doing more, adding tasks, checking boxes. But equally important is the discipline of restraint, The quiet strength it takes to not do something you know doesn't serve you, to not reach for the phone when you're overwhelmed, to not speak the harsh word when silence would be kinder, to not indulge the thought that you already know will lead you down an old weary path. In that sense, discipline becomes a guardian, a silent ally that helps you protect your peace, preserve your energy, and honor your deeper intentions. And the more you practice it, the less it feels like effort, and the more it becomes love. Because really, that's what focus is too. Focus is love. It's where you place your attention, and whatever you give your attention to day after day becomes your life. I remember a monk who once said to me, "Where your eyes rest, your soul will follow." That line stayed with me, because in a world built to scatter us, to pull us in 1,000 directions with noise and flashing lights and endless scrolls, bringing your attention back to something simple, something still, is an act of quiet rebellion. And it's not just about focusing during meditation or on lofty goals. It's about how you wash the dishes, how you walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, how you listen to the sound of someone else's voice. Are you really there? Or are you halfway out the door, mentally racing to the next thing? Focus doesn't mean doing one thing for hours without pause. It means doing this one thing now with your whole heart. Whether it's drinking tea, speaking kindly, or simply sitting with yourself in silence. And yes, you'll forget. Of course you will. That's not failure. That's the rhythm of the path. The practice isn't to never lose your focus. It's to notice when you've drifted and to return, softly, without scolding, like a mother guiding a child back to bed in the middle of the night. So let me ask you now, not with urgency, but with tenderness, where is your energy going each day? What are you feeding with your time, your thoughts, your presence? And is it leading you closer to peace or further from it? There's no judgment in the answer, only clarity, only invitation, because the beauty of this path is that it's always waiting. No matter how far you wander, no matter how many days you forget to practice, or how many times you fall, peace doesn't hold a grudge. The moment you remember, the moment you return, it's right there, open-armed, like an old friend who never stopped believing in you. As we approach the final part of this journey together, we'll return to where we began, with the self. But now we'll view it through new eyes, not as something to improve, not even something to define, but something to embrace. We'll explore what it truly means to live at ease within ourselves, to let go, finally, of the weight we were never meant to carry, and to walk forward with lightness, clarity, and the quiet strength of someone who has remembered their way home. There is a moment, and maybe you've felt it before, when all the noise inside you begins to quiet. Not because life has suddenly become simple, but because you no longer believe that every thought is yours to follow, or every emotion is yours to fix. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't arrive with a grand realization or a burst of light. It feels like a long exhale, like the soft relief of taking off shoes that never really fit. That's what it feels like to come home to yourself. Not the self defined by achievements or failures, not the one dressed up for the world, smiling politely while quietly bracing against life's sharp edges, but the self underneath all that. The you that's been watching, waiting, patient and untouched through all the changes and all the years. In Buddhism, there's a teaching that says the greatest freedom is not found in what we acquire, but in what we release. And at the heart of that release is a letting go, not of life itself, but of the tension with which we've been holding it. I once spent time with a monk who had lived over 60 years in the same temple. He moved slowly, like each step was part of a dance only he could hear. One day, as we sat in silence, he turned to me and said, "I don't carry anything I can't set down." And I smiled, thinking he was talking about his simple bag or the wooden beads on his wrist. But then he added, "I mean anger, guilt, the need to be right. They're all heavier than they look. And in that moment I understood something I'd only half grasped before, that peace isn't something we find, it's something we uncover by gently loosening our grip on everything that isn't it. So let's pause here together and ask, what are you still gripping? Is it an old idea of who you're supposed to be? A version of yourself that was never really yours? A wound you haven't yet allowed to scar over? And if you could set it down even for a moment, what space might open inside of you? Because here's the quiet truth no one tells us when we're younger. You are allowed to live gently. You are allowed to forgive yourself. You are allowed to rest, to feel joy without earning it, to let go without explanation. You are allowed to exist simply because you are here, because you breathe, because you love, even in imperfect ways. And if someone told you otherwise, if you were taught that worth must be proven, that stillness is laziness, that love must be deserved, let them be wrong, let them be mistaken. You don't have to carry that anymore. The Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection, not because you've done enough, but because you exist, because you are here. And now, at the end of this shared journey, perhaps the invitation is not to become anything new, but to soften into the truth of who you've always been, to return, as we all must eventually, to the still point beneath the spinning world. Let your breath be easy, let your heart be soft, let your mind, just for a while, float like a leaf on a slow river. There is nothing you must figure out right now, nothing to solve, nothing to chase. You have walked with me through the patterns of mind, the weight of regret, the pull of striving, the gift of discipline, and the healing of return. And all of it has been about one thing, awakening to the quiet wisdom already living inside you. So as we part ways for now, let me leave you with this. May you walk slowly through your days, with enough presence to hear the whisper of your own soul. May you forgive yourself again and again, until forgiveness becomes your first language. May your life become a temple, not of perfection, but of presence. A place where each moment is met fully, with tenderness, with curiosity, with breath. And when the world feels too loud or too fast, may you remember the way back home is always within you. Not a place, not a role, not a story, but a way of being. A gentle, steady light you carry in your chest. Until we meet again, may you live not just wisely but kindly. May you be at peace, not because everything is resolved, but because you no longer need everything to be. And may that be enough.